Is it too early to talk about the 2024 NFL Draft? Not here at Draft Countdown. Coach Dwight Schepps from Toilets to Titles is going to join us as we look ahead to the 2024 prospects on offense. Coming up next on the Draft Countdown podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Draft Countdown podcast. I am your co-host, Brian Bosarge, joined as always by my co-host, Shane P. Hallam. Shane, 350 days, 22 hours, 58 minutes, and 20 seconds away from the 2024 NFL Draft.
Yeah, let's make the transition. Let's do it. I mean, we are here. 2023 drafts behind us. We got the grades up on the site, and now it's time to start previewing 2024 and who to look for in college this fall.
Yeah, it's we're fully into that 2024 draft season now. We're gonna start having some pieces. We've got 4 2024 mock drafts up on the site. You have a 7-rounder. We had a special guest drop a 3-round mock draft on us today, and myself and Brad each had 1 round because we're not silly. And up on the site as well. But yeah, and then Shane, you dropped a 2025 mock draft on us on Monday, and 2026 coming up this coming Monday. And you've also had your big boards drop for 2024 and 2025, and I presume 2026 will come next week as well.
Yeah, 2026 is coming on Sunday. If you're listening, it's already hidden up there somewhere. So if you really want to find it, it's stuck there. In.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk a little bit about the 2023 draft later when we ask some questions. We missed some questions last week on Twitter. That's my fault. We're gonna answer those. So if you sent that question in last week, we're gonna get to it a little bit later. But we remind you, if you're in the chat and you want to have your question answered later on in the show, just go ahead and drop a question in the chat there. We'll get to it. Or if you're on Twitter, send it to @DraftCountdown. We'll answer your question later. Or you can always join our Discord and ask a question there. Go to draftcountdown.com. It's in the top right corner of the search bar, and send your question in there on the Discord. We'd love to have you join us. But Shane, let's go ahead and get right into this 2024 offensive discussion here. And we're going to bring in our special guest tonight. He's a good friend of the show, good friend of ours, from toiletstotitles.com. He's the coach. He's Dwight Schepps. He's the hot show over there at Toilets to Titles.
What's happening? How we doing? I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see both of you fellas. And I've never been called Dwight before, but I'm good with it.
Is it not Dwight?
I love it.
No, it's John. But I like, Dwight is something like I've never been called Dwight before, man. So I'm going to embrace it.
Where the hell did I get that from?
I think it's a cooler name. I think you got to make the change.
John is very generic. It's cookie cutter. Dwight is like,
I'm sorry, man. Where did I get that from?
Listen,
I got to go edit YouTube things.
I don't know.
Now.
Justin likes it. Justin's going to start calling you Dwight.
I kind of like it. I don't think I know any Dwights. I'm ready to embrace it. But I'm also like you guys. I mean, I'm changing names because I'm changing. Usually I don't dive into next year's class. Like I usually have like a guy or two I'm really super excited for. But the way I dive into next year's class is usually during Devy draft season, me reaching out to Shane sending me a list. Shane sends me a list. I keep that master list in my docs, and then I kind of convert it to my own notes. And then around August, I really start diving through the players. So this is the first time I've gotten this deep into next year's class this early, and it's because of you guys. So you can call me whatever you want. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here.
Look,
I'm embarrassed, to be honest.
your Bryce Young share finally paid off. I think I had you draft him as an incoming freshman, and so
Yes.
finally get to pay that one off.
Young, Boutte, Quentin Johnson I had from the jump. Yeah.
Maybe
around.
We don't brag about Butte anymore, though.
No, but
Yeah,
it's still a name. It's still like a polarizing name.
Don't feel bad, as I also, unless they were eligible for last year's draft, I also haven't watched them either. So don't feel too bad. You're not alone in this instance. But that's what we got Shane here for, right?
yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to be shown up. I dove in.
Good.
All right.
Good.
So let's dive right in, and let's. I mean, you have to start with the QBs, right? We always do. It's the position that makes everything go round. And at this point, we pretty much know who QB1 is, right? And I don't expect this to change in the entire process. And Shane, you can correct me here. The last 2 years running, we've had edge rushers go bell to bell as our number one prospects. Kayvon Thibodeau 2 years ago, Will Anderson this past draft cycle. I fully anticipate that Caleb Williams, the quarterback from Southern Cal, is going to be our number one prospect bell to bell.
Yeah, I think it's very possible. He's my number one in the class right now. I think he's in position, Caleb Williams, to challenge the top quarterback prospects ever, at least since I've been doing it. Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck, my top two since 2004. I think he has that type of talent and skill set, showed it off last year. But expectations are always high when the target's on your back and you're expected to be the number one overall player. We know guys can fall back, or the criticism and tendency to pick out some of the small things definitely will happen with Caleb Williams. So there's always a chance, injury, whatever. But the athleticism, I think Caleb Williams brings to the table. The freelancing ability, the ability to hit a spot, anywhere on the field with his arm. I think he's a special player. I don't know, Schepps, if you feel the same way. Dwight, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think he's electric. So usually, like quarterbacks, it's so tough scouting quarterbacks. For me, I've always like wide receivers, running backs, even tight ends, safeties. Those are the position groups I have a really good grip, I feel like. But the nuances of the game for a quarterback, it's hard for me to see through film. But watching Caleb Williams, the dude's completely, I mean, he won the Heisman, right? Yeah, he has 824 career rushing yards. So he can move. He's very mobile. And what I noticed, his improvisational skills, but also the touch he puts on the football. Like, I notice a lot of guys I'm watching when I'm watching quarterbacks, it's one speed. And he throttles up, he throttles down. So I'm very impressed with Caleb Williams. I'm surprised that, though, you're Ohio State guy. So I'm surprised that Marvin Harrison Jr. is in the discussion for you for your number one prospect. Is that tugging at your heartstrings or no?
It's hard. He's number two. It's hard not to put a guy, we'll get to the receivers, but it's hard not to put that guy up there. I like your comment about Caleb Williams being able to kind of change how he throws passes. I think we watched Anthony Richardson this year. One of the big criticisms I had was he just throws that fastball, every play. And Caleb Williams has this innate ability, maybe the best I've seen, to really anticipate where a receiver's going to be and having the zip on the throw match where the receiver is going to be at the right time. So if he keeps that up, I mean, I think this year could be exceptional. And if the USC defense was better, I mean, we might be talking about a national title contender.
But it wouldn't be as fun to watch if the defense was better. But
that's
putting them in a position where they got to keep chucking. And now Dorian Singer transferred over from Arizona, and we're going to talk about him later, I'm sure. His body control, he doesn't need gigantic passing windows for the quarterback to throw to. So watching Caleb Williams kind of paint out there, just be a artist place in the football where it needs to be for Dorian Singer just to go up and snatch it out of the air. I'm looking forward to seeing him move on from throwing to Jordan Addison to a guy like Dorian Singer, who's a true, like, an outside guy. I think it'll be very fun.
Caleb Williams is the only prospect eligible for this class that I have watched that wasn't, like I said, wasn't previously eligible. And I watched him the other night. I made a couple of notes on him. the thing I liked about him most was how he can throw from different arm angles. And it's like, that's a rare trait. It's a Mahomesian trait now. We see him do it all the time. And I think that's the guy that he's going to get comped to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably by a great deal of people. They're going to see the stuff he does on the field. And I think Mahomes is going to be the easy, like, go-to for people. The thing I wrote negatively about him that I didn't like, and then I got an answer to why a little bit later, was I noted he bailed on the pocket early sometimes. Like when he had a clean pocket, I could see him leaving the pocket, sometimes a bit before he needed to. And then later in the game, I saw both of his offensive tackles just basically become like bullfighters, and just olay every edge rusher Utah had in the Pac-12 championship game. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's why he's bailing early, because he's used to these guys being bums. So he's got to get out of there. So I kind of like scratched that off. I was like, okay, now I can understand why. But yeah, he's got everything you need. Let's move on to number two. What I presume to be number two is Drake May. And he's got the prototypical size, right? 6'5", probably going to be 215, 220. I see Justin Herbert comps getting thrown out there for him. Is that fair? And do we expect him to end up as QB2?
Yeah, and Drake May, being the quarterback in North Carolina, having to take over for Sam Howell, who maybe from an NFL perspective didn't have the draft capital or whatever, but he was a fantastic college quarterback, I think is very difficult. But I thought May handled it extremely well this year. Yeah, 6'5", 220, moving the way that he does. He shows that rushing ability. I think he has more rushing ability than Justin Herbert does even. You see that size be used to May's advantage. The arm, long arms can really whip that ball down the field. I think he knows when to take the easy Josh Downs throw, and I think he knew when to kind of challenge and go for more. I think there's a nice ceiling there. I do think there's a lot of issues with a lot of the technique, which is usual for a young quarterback that hasn't started a lot of games. I mean, I think the footwork, I think stepping up in the pocket, a lot of times he would just kind of, take a drop back and throw it kind of flat footed. I don't think he always stepped up into pressure to avoid when the pocket collapsed. I think there's a lot of small things that could hinder accuracy, could hinder certain aspects of his game. So, I have a little more worry for Drake May. He's definitely my QB2, like by far. I have him in my top 6 prospects this draft. He's number 6. But I do have more worry for him than I did for, say, CJ Stroud of potentially falling back down. Is going to get a transfer in Tez Walker to replace Josh Downs. Like I think the weapons will be fine, but I have a little bit of fear. But the upside is certainly there more than any other quarterback in this class.
Yeah, I like Drake May. He was number 8 in the ACC in rushing yards last year with 698, like 6'5", and he moves. That's what when you made the comparison to Justin Herbert, where the comparison I think is accurate is the arm. Dude's got a cannon. Like one of my notes for him was just effortless arm strength. Like I just saw him whipping the ball off his back foot, like tight windows, right where it needs to be. And Josh Downs had a lot of extended grabs where the ball didn't die at the numbers. The ball was like he was throwing the football, trying to throw it through his chest. So I like Drake May. I'm interested to see how he develops this year. And I saw what you said, Shane, about him getting out and kind of escaping a lot, not sitting in the pocket, but he had like the lateral quickness for him to evade and to get outside. You might be relying on it too much, but his movement ability is so evident and clear. And hopefully coaching and development can teach him to stay in the pocket a little bit longer, because he can make any throw on the field, at that size. And then I want to go back to Williams. Do we think Caleb Williams is going to come in at 6'1"?
No, I think certainly
taller
not.
or shorter.
I think he'll be shorter. I think he'll be above 6 foot, though. I don't think it's going to be, a Bryce Young, Kyler Murray situation.
Still, man, like this guy, Drake May's got a few inches he could give him at 6'5", 220 pounds. Too bad it don't work that way.
Before we move on to the carryover from last year's quarterbacks, I want to talk about a couple other ones right quick. Quinn Ewers from Texas, we've only seen in a handful of games, and JJ McCarthy from Michigan. are a couple of guys that I'm kind of singling out here. Talk to me about those two guys, Ewers first, and then McCarthy. McCarthy, I see lower on your board, but Shane, I've been seeing, some early mocks with him and going in that first round. So talk to me about Ewers, why he's QB4 for you, and then McCarthy a little bit lower down.
Yeah, Ewers, I wish I could figure out. I think there is a stud quarterback in there somewhere. I think we started to see it come out in the game he got hurt against Alabama, where he started that game very hot, making reads. I was like, wow, second game, this guy is finally getting it. 5-star recruit, went to Ohio State, transferred to Texas. And then when he came back from injury, he torched Oklahoma. He absolutely obliterated Oklahoma and was very solid. And then you'll have the game against TCU where, I thought he looked like an undrafted free agent. They couldn't read a defense where the athleticism, he looked slow in terms of even identifying the pass rush and where it's coming from. Like what happened. I think Quinn Ewers has first round potential. There's a reason he was a 5-star number 1 overall recruit. He came into college a year early. I think that could be a reason too. One of the issues is he's getting pushed. He has Arch Manning coming in this year. Quinn Ewers has the job. I don't think that's a problem, but they're going to want him out. It's either Arch Manning or Malik Murphy. You can't stay for 4 years. You got to go. I think it could be an issue. I don't see it with JJ McCarthy. Look, you mentioned I'm an Ohio State alumni. Maybe it's my bias showing. I think the game against Ohio State, where he was thrown against cover 0 and probably had his best game, a lot of those passes, I felt like he was just chucking the ball up. I don't think he has the arm to throw the ball down the field. I don't think he has the zip. And I think there were a number of games last year. I thought Penn State absolutely confused the heck out of him. I don't see even the footwork technique for JJ McCarthy. Can always get there. Michigan has not shown me either that they can develop skill positions very well, especially quarterback and receivers. So I'm definitely much lower on him than the consensus right now, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. So when you mentioned the Mahomes comparison for Caleb Williams, it seems a lot of people want to make the Mahomes comparison for the way Quinn Ewers throws the ball, but the way he throws the football, I think is a detriment. I think he's got so much skill. He's learned to rely on being able to complete the ball at odd angles. And when I watch him, it looks like his upper body and his lower body are not on the same wavelength. His upper body's doing something, his lower body's doing something else. It's like it's not communicating. Sometimes when he's throwing the football, it seems last second he's doing it before he's even thinking about throwing the football. So I think 2023 is going to be such a huge year for Ewers. The talent, the physical talent is there, but the mental aspect, I don't know if he's just lackadaisical because he's so physically gifted, or he's just isn't getting things and he's making snap judgments based upon things he's seeing immediate rather than reading defenses and going through his reads. And then McCarthy, no way at that size is he going to be able to run like he does at the next level. And I think the way he's able to run, he had 70 carries, 306 yards, 5 touchdowns. The way I watched him run when I watched this film, he's 6'3". That's what the measurements I got, under 200. He's going to get beat to a pulp if he runs like that. He does have a decent arm. He throws a tight spiral. When I watched this film, that's the one thing I noticed. The ball spins beautifully off of McCarthy's arms, but he trusts his arm too much. He's just throwing the ball, thinking he's going to throw it into tight windows, and he doesn't really have much anticipation. He's not throwing a receiver open, or he's not waiting for him to get open on his break. He's just winging it. He's just flinging it in there, thinking his arm's going to send it in there. So I'm not as high on those two guys either. I like Penix out of Washington over both McCarthy and Ewers.
Well, you mentioned Michael Penix, and he was eligible for last year's draft, and that's kind of where I was going next. Bo Nix from Oregon. I have opinions. Michael Penix from Washington. KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, another one, and Tyler Van Dyke. These are all guys that were, especially Van Dyke was considered a top 10 prospect last year entering the season and just fell off the damn earth. And so can he get it back? I mean, I don't know, but let's start with Bo Nix. I'm going to be lower. Maybe I can't shake the Auburn off of him. Although he played a lot better last year at Oregon.
A lot better.
But Pac-12 defenses ain't SEC defenses either. So,
yeah. Well, and also, I think Oregon coaching is much better than Auburn coaching as well. I think it's a big difference. I also think you're missing a couple guys there that are, I think there's a big group here of older prospects that I think could emerge. I do like Bo Nix the best from how he played last year because, he's another 5-star recruit. I think people forget that the physical tools are better than you remember from Auburn, that he definitely has the arm. I think we started to see, especially as the year went on, him put together some of the mental aspects of the game and work within that system well. And they had a balanced game. So I think there's upside with Bo Nix that, that a lot of people aren't giving him credit for. I feel more comfortable with him over Penix just because of I've heard the medical probably is going to be an issue for Michael Penix. We saw the multiple knee injuries at Indiana. He did make it through last year. I think if he makes it through this whole season, maybe those go away. But we've seen how that can sink players in the draft. So I have that fear more than anything, and movement-wise. But I think Nix has a little bit of that athleticism to get out of the pocket too. So if I had to bank on 1 4+ year player to go in the first round, I think I'd probably bet on Nix over Penix.
Yeah, with Nix, what you're going to get is a lot of experience. And that seems to be the buzzword right now with quarterbacks coming out of college after, the Brock Purdy situation in the NFL. Everybody's, why do we miss on him? Why do we miss on him? Well, a lot of teams and a lot of GMs are thinking we're missed on him because we didn't put into consideration how much experience factors into capabilities of a player to develop. And we're seeing Nix not only have the experience, play against tough defenses, maybe be in a tough situation at Auburn, move on to Oregon, and develop. So, someone will definitely, obviously, be willing to take a risk on him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he hits. With Penix, he's lefty. I think he's not a runner, right? He only had 92 yards in 2022. That dude's going to sit in the pocket. You know who he reminds me of throwing the football? He reminds me of Geno Smith at West Virginia. Like the way Geno Smith threw the ball, I see a lot of that with Penix, just pure volume passer, the high hit rate, good accuracy, good arm, good tools, good skills, but he's going to be 24 going into his rookie season. And like you said, he has some injuries. So it'll be interesting. Clearly this class is strong, high with the youth and with May and Williams, but one of these guys might be a career backup or, the possibilities are there.
Quickly, Joe Milton.
Yeah, I think Joe Milton, lost his job at Michigan to Cade to the players there. His name escaped me. I want to say Cade McNown. That is a long time ago. Cade McNamara, who's awful. So
now at Iowa,
still going to be awful.
Better than Petrus.
Maybe. But, Milton is, I think after Anthony Richardson, people are like, well, who's the next Anthony Richardson? I think you kind of have a couple contenders for that. I think Joe Milton's one of them. He's probably has the strongest arm in college football, maybe in the world. Like, I think his arm's stronger than Anthony Richardson. I think it's maybe stronger than anyone.
Did you just say in the world?
Yes.
That's a bold statement.
It is. I'm probably wrong, right? I mean, it's probably.
But regardless, it doesn't matter if you're wrong. The fact that we're willing to make that statement is pretty damn bold.
I mean, he can throw. It's Jamarcus Russell-esque, right? Like this is a guy that can throw at 80 yards on one knee, and that's impressive. He's going to start in Tennessee. We saw that offense at Tennessee. Work for Hendon Hooker and work for these receivers. It is gimmicky in how it gets receivers open and what you have to read. So I think Milton might look good, but I mean, Brian mentioned KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, who's 6'3", 245, is a tank running the football. I think Jordan Travis, I think Florida State is going to be exceptional this year. I think they're going to be a top 5 team. and Jordan Travis is going to lead the way. I think he has a first-round shot. So I think there's a number of quarterbacks, older quarterbacks, 4 or 5 year guys out of high school that could emerge here.
Yeah, I haven't watched either of these guys yet, but strongest arm in the world. I have it circled. I can't wait to watch.
I wish Jalen Hyatt was still there because
he's going to have the problem
White.
with Milton is he's going to have all the same questions coming into him that Hendon Hooker had, with the exception of the ACL. He's going to be 25. He's going to be coming from that same offensive scheme that they brought up about Hooker. And the biggest difference, the thing I see with Joe Milton is he has absolutely no touch at all. He's throwing the fast. He has no changeup.
Yeah,
he's throwing the fast. He's throwing the fastball all the time. So
we saw in that offense Jalen Hyatt. Now Squirrel White's going to be in that role. It does the same thing, just gets open down the field like that. That's going to impress someone. So. I don't know. It's always, I think it's a false equivalency with quarterbacks. Say, well, if this guy can go in the first, if Jordan Love can go here, then anyone, if Anthony Richardson can go 4, well, then Joe Milton can go in the first round. Like, it doesn't work like that, but I think that's what makes it intriguing.
Yeah, it only works like that when it works like that.
Right.
Let's move on to running back now. And I am, other than Blake Corum, I really have, and Frank Gore Jr., I have absolutely no clue about the top 5 of the Shane P. Hallam 2024 draft rankings. So, I take that back. I do know a little bit about Raheem Rocket Sanders because I watched him go for 2 bills on South Carolina last year. So I did see that. But so let's start with him. He's number 1, Shane. Very rare to see a running back in that 230 range be nicknamed Rocket.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a big, fast, tough runner who I think willed that Arkansas offense to be better than it was this past season. 6'2". I think he'll probably come in the 220s, high 220s, 230 pounds. And I mean, he packs a punch. Like, if you don't bring him down and he gets through that line, he has that third gear that he can explode to so quickly and just do what he did against South Carolina and just boom, take off. And tackle him from behind, you forget about it, not in terms of speed, but he's so big. Like, you can't get the grip to bring him down. I just think he's such a unique runner. I think number 1 and number 2 are close for me, but I think Rocket Sanders just has such upside as a lead NFL back that it's tough to ignore.
Yeah, and it's hard to watch these prospects. I know we had this discussion when we were at the Senior Bowl, Brian. I know I come from a fantasy background, so when I watch a guy like this, it immediately rings a bell because this is a guy who can stay on the field all 3 downs. 28 receptions in 2022, 271 yards, 9.7 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. Strong numbers. Like, you can work with that. He's big, he's physical, he could protect. He was number 1 in the SEC in yards per carry with 6.5, and yards from scrimmage with 17-14. So the numbers are there. When I heard Rocket and I watched him, I was expecting breakaway speed on every run. Some runs I saw him at the 2nd and 3rd level run away from guys, but it wasn't every time he got to the 2nd or 3rd level. So he's Rocket, but he's not consistently Rocket. Like, he's Rocket more so I'm going to blast through you than I'm always going to blast by you. But for a guy who's going to be on the field for every down, somebody like this, when he got to the 2nd and 3rd, I think I like Donovan. I know I'm kind of jumping around. I'm sorry. But Edwards from Michigan is similar. Like, these guys, the way they run, when they get to the 2nd level, they're making corners and safeties make business decisions. And if you're running into these guys, every single carry, by the time it gets to the 3rd or 4th quarter, that's when you see the Rocket become the Rocket because people are diving at his feet and then he's running by them. So, running back from Arkansas, wearing number 5, sign me up.
Where do you have him, Schepps, in terms of ranking? Because I think this is a tight running back group at the top.
I have him 4.
4, okay.
But it's close.
Yeah.
It's very close.
Like I said, it's a tight group at the top.
Yeah, it's a tier. It's like a tier, 1 tier, and he's 4th in it.
Very interesting that we have 2 Ohio State running backs, Travion Henderson, who exploded onto the national scene as a freshman and has dealt with some injuries, right? And Mayan Williams, the other Ohio State running back, they'll be, splitting carries in the backfield. You mentioned Donovan Edwards will be splitting carries with Blake Corum, who's coming back from an injury. So that makes for interesting evaluations, right? Because these guys aren't going to be, 100% factors on their offenses.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it can be a positive if you want it to be a positive, or a negative if you want it to be a negative. Like, I feel like people use it to kind of mold their arguments. Well, you're not getting all the carries, you're not going to be as worn down for the NFL, but then if you don't get all the carries, I don't know if you can be a lead back. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't work that way. I mean, generally, the guys that get more carries and are successful in college get more carries and are more successful in the NFL. But we're moving to
Marion Barber.
Fair. Man, he had a couple good years. He
right,
okay.
But Lawrence Maroney was the guy.
Well,
and then Marion came into the NFL. I was like, no, I'm that dude.
Nah, I'm going to take it. So I think the Ohio State and Michigan backfields are interesting. As Timothy is saying in the chat, that Henderson has that speed, 5-star recruit. Came in as a true freshman. They couldn't keep him off the field. They kind of tried and couldn't keep him off the field because he has such that explosion right from the start and has the high end speed. I think he's the guy that can run away from guys in space. He gets there and can do that. We saw the injury last year, I think, really brought him down. I do think Henderson's vision, I had questions going into last year. We didn't get a chance to answer those. It's kind of what puts him at number 2 for me, where I think he'll make a lot of poor decisions in terms of cutbacks, in terms of the holes to hit. He misses holes. I think there's maybe some rawness to Travion Henderson's game. And I think that's why Mine Williams got a lot of play. He's the bowling ball, 230, small, short, but big. So I think Trey's right up there with a great year. He has a chance to be a top 50 pick.
Yeah, my notes for Henderson, just his feet are so damn quick. It is so impressive to watch him cut in and out of the defense. Like, his feet are like typewriter. Bim, 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 bim. So he's exciting for me, and I always like guys like that. And I think he's a weapon. He's an offensive weapon. He's not just a running back. I have him number 1 just for upside. I know he was banged up. He had the broken bone in his foot in 2022. He missed some time. But in his career, 290 carries, 6.3 yards per carry, 21 touchdowns on the ground, 340 receiving yards, 11 yards per reception, 5 touchdowns. If he goes to the right offense, like imagine him in Philadelphia, right? I know they're bringing in, they got DeAndre Swift, but he's a one and done. Rashad Penny, just a guy like that who's got a running quarterback next to him, who's going to be able to freeze linebackers, freeze edge defenders, and going to be able to give him space. So now instead of having to make 3 or 4 defenders miss, he's only going to have to make 1 defender miss. So the job's a little easier for him. He's going to make you miss. One-on-one, this cat is very impressive.
An interesting philosophical discussion with Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. He's coming from that I-back offense at Wisconsin, his first 2 years. And this year they're going to be more the wide open offense. Pete Limbo, I think, so they brought in as the OC, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're going to go to the spread air raid offense. Does that make change how you evaluate him, or is it better because you're going to have tape on him in multiple styles?
Yeah. Look at Anthony Richardson comes into the Colts, and now people are concerned. Can Jonathan Taylor run the read option? I don't know if he's ever ran the read option ever. And now this cat, he's going to have the opportunity to play in a different offense and put something else on film. So coaches are going to know what he's capable of. But Shane, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I think it's great. I think you're right. He almost transferred. There was talk about him going to USC, and he stayed. I think they sold the offense to him, like you said, to diversify that skill set. I mean, I've seen Braylon Allen catch 3 passes. It's very small. Wisconsin, right? He was just running the ball up the gut. And now he might catch 30, 40 passes this year. So we're going to see if that skill set's there. I already know that he can run between the tackles in the gap scheme and, run guys over. I think the interesting thing with Braylon Allen in Wisconsin is his age. He's not going to turn 20 until January. Season's over. He is younger than some incoming freshmen into college football. So you're getting, I think, a very young player that's still developing, still getting bigger, stronger, faster at 19 years old. I think there's a lot of upside that's still untapped there. So I thought this year was a little bit worse for Allen. Part of that's on Wisconsin, but I still think the upside's really big for some 6'2", 215 now, as you said, Coach. Like he's going to be catching passes. I like it.
It's funny. So Wisconsin's changed into the shotgun. Army's changed into the shotgun. Like what is going on? Two offenses that are just straight punch you in the mouth. But with Allen, Shane, you mentioned it was kind of a down year. He still had 230 carries for 1,250 yards, 5.4 yards per carry. Like when you're a defensive coordinator preparing to play Wisconsin, I assume, the Monday morning meeting when you're having your coffee, you're talking to the position coaches like, hey, here's the guy we need to stop. They're circling the running back for Wisconsin, whoever it is. And it happens to be Braylon Allen. So teams are going out there trying to stop this guy, and they can't. And I'm excited to see him work a little bit in space because we've seen him navigate through traffic. And I think that's what his best trait is. His best trait is anticipation, his jump cuts as he navigates through clutter, finding space, taking it. He's a north-south guy who's capable of side-to-side jump cuts, and he's very efficient. Like efficiency, I think, would be a big term for Braylon Allen. He's going to get you yardage. He's going to get you positive yardage. He's not as explosive as a Raheem Sanders, Rocket, it's not Braylon Rocket Allen, but he's efficient and he's going to get you chunks, and then break. And he's physical. So, and he's a Wisconsin running back. So sign me up like right away.
Last running back, and we'll talk about him quickly, is Frank Gore Jr., Southern Miss. I got to see in person, in-house at the Lending Tree Bowl, him obliterate the single bowl game rushing record. I just thought that was a fun thing to be able to see. You don't really get to see 300 plus rushing yards in a game in person, and I got to see that. Quick thoughts on Frank Gore Jr. and how he could potentially be an NFL running back.
Look, I think he's been productive. I think he's beat up on a lot of defenses. I think Frank Gore, I don't know if he has the size and the frame for me to feel great about like this is a, starter in the NFL. He doesn't have his dad's bulk and build, but I think he's a player that's being underrated right now, and can get drafted and have a role on the team. So I still, I still like him in my top 10, but we'll see. We'll see how this season goes. Like playing, I really expect him to transfer up. I think he should have transferred up somewhere.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that, or at least transfer over to Miami. Like I know that I don't know if that would necessarily be considered, but go do what your dad did. But 1,300 yards at the ground, 6.1 yards per carry, and then breaking that single game record for the bowl game. It's pretty impressive. 5'8" though. 185 pounds. Is he going to come in at 185 pounds? I think he's a guy who's going to be a contributor at the NFL just based upon legacy. He knows what it takes. He's got a father who's experienced. So I think he's going to come in. He'll find a role. I don't know how productive he's going to be at the next level, but I think he's going to find a way to stick around because his dad did, and he's got good genes.
Yeah. I think the Michigan duo is going to be highly touted. Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum.
I like Edwards a lot. I think Edwards he's one of my favorite backs in this class. I have him number 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 games. If he does that again, I'll be interested to see how that goes. Will Shipley from Clemson is a little bit of a mystery, and I really like Trey Benson from Florida State. I'm going to pump up most of these Florida State guys. I think they're going to be good. I think Trey Benson could potentially be a top 50 back.
What about our guy Carson Steele? UCLA
doesn't look like he's starting for UCLA, so I think it's gonna be tough.
Man, 1,500 yards.
For Carson Steele.
1,500 yards at Ball State. I'm hoping he gets an opportunity. Man.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right, let's move on to receiver, and Marvin Harrison Jr. go.
I mean, I have to kind of look back, but I don't know. He's the best wide receiver prospect to me in a long, long time. Like, I think if he keeps playing like this, I think he's better than Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had that year off. I mean, we could be talking since Julio Jones, AJ Green that year. Marvin Harrison Jr., just a lot of the subtleties. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic. His body control's absolutely great. But Marvin Harrison Jr. off the line, I mean, his footwork off the line is so hard to cover one-on-one, and he'll make you pay. Joey Porter Jr. is my number 2 corner in the class. And there are multiple times that like Joey Porter Jr. took one wrong step inside. Marvin Harrison immediately, this is split second stuff. Read it, took a step the other way and was able to blow past him and beat the press because your leverage is off. Like he knows exactly how to do that. We saw it against Keely Ringo. We saw it against all these guys in the top, 100, 150 of the draft. I mean, he dominated every single one. It just, I don't know. I don't know how he does what he does. But I think he's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft as long as nothing goes poorly.
So you mentioned his routes and you gushed over his routes, his releases off the line, his size. He's 6'3", 202 pounds. He's an ideal X, which I don't think we had an ideal X in the entire 22 class. And it's Cedric Tillman, but he's limited. A.T. Perry, but he's limited. Quentin
Jonathan Mingo was the first X drafted.
So Marvin Harrison, I mean, there's a few, I think, in this class who are very solid X receivers, and he's one of them. But when Marvin Harrison, what I love about Marvin Harrison is watching him track the football. His ball tracking ability, his body control, and his hands, like the way he goes from tracking the football, like an outfielder, like a very, very good outfielder. And another thing, this might sound like lazy analysis. I like Wisconsin running backs. I like Ohio State wide receivers. Like Brian Hartline, I don't know how much he's involved with bringing in and recruiting these prospects, but I know he's coaching these prospects, and he's got good taste. He's very, very successful, and these wide receivers are very, very successful. Like dating back, Terry McLaurin, no one was expecting much out of that guy. Comes into the Senior Bowl. Shout out to Brian Bosarge. He's our host down there in Mobile, Alabama. And but so I think Ohio State wide receivers, Marvin Harrison's a dude.
That brings us to his teammate, Emeka Egbuka, right?
I mean, we saw Emeka Egbuka step in that Jackson Smith and Jigba role and absolutely, I think, kill it. He kind of picked up where JSN left off and maybe doesn't have quite the dynamic ability that we saw 2 years ago from JSN, but I think the consistency, like Egbuka out of the slot, he has a little bit more size too. I think he could play an outside role. I think he's versatile. Really good, big, just soft hands and the ability to not lose a step when he's catching the football and kind of continue to pick up some extra yardage. I think we haven't seen the best from Egbuka even, yet. And I think when we have a worse quarterback there, I think we're really going to see Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka and what they can do.
Egbuka kind of reminds me of AJ Brown when he was at Ole Miss. I don't think he's as stocky as AJ Brown was, but he's an offensive weapon who's working primarily from the slot, and the offense is going to manufacture him touches. Like Garrett Wilson, he's creating major separation. He's getting open. He's tracking the football. Egbuka is the type of guy you're going to throw him some screens. You're going to throw him some crossing routes. You're going to just try to get the football in this guy's hands. He's very good at it. And the way he wears his socks, remind me, that's the way AJ Brown, he even dresses like AJ Brown on the football field. He had about 40 more yards after the catch than Jalen Hyatt did in 2022, which that says something, because Jalen Hyatt, usually when he was catching the football, he was running away from somebody, and he was 13th in the nation in yards after catch per reception with 7.1. So, he's different, and I think that's exciting. It's not like you have two guys kind of in the same cookie cutter mold. Garrett Wilson, I'm sorry, Garrett, that's what I'm thinking when I think of Marvin Harrison, because I see similarities there too. But Marvin Harrison's a bigger version of that. You got Marvin Harrison, and then you got Egbuka, who's just a weapon, who's, kind of similar, what I said about Travion Henderson. Guys you want to manufacture touches and get them the football.
There was a lot of talk about the 2023 wide receiver class not being that good. Just looking at some of the production and everything we've seen from this 2024 group, it looks like we're going to get back on track, right? With this class, there's your 3, 4, and 5 guys, Shane, I know little about here. So just kind of talk quickly about Xavier Worthy from Texas, Troy Franklin, Oregon, and Malik Neighbors, LSU, and why they could be, go high in the 2024 draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think Worthy, he's small. He's your Hollywood Brown type of receiver, but super productive. 19 years old as a true freshman, and I felt last year he struggled a little bit more in terms of getting open, and maybe some of his effort, a little injury concerns that happened with him. But I think he has dynamic ability, screen pass. What we saw was Zay Flowers, and
I was just going to ask you. I was going to raise my hand and say,
yeah.
Who were you higher on going into their final year of college? Flowers or Worthy?
I think I'm higher on Worthy. That doesn't mean he's going to be a first round pick, that's going to happen. But I think I'm higher on Worthy because he did it so early. And I think in this offense, it just works for him to have some of that, early production. And I think the age helps too, so I like him. I really like Troy Franklin from Oregon. He's got that. He's a little taller, lankier, but
Devontae Smith. It was kind of my comparison for him a little bit. A little more aggressive than Smith, though.
A little more aggressive, but he gets open down the field. A lot of different routes too, which you don't expect from Oregon. I thought Troy Franklin. I'm interested to see if they even expand his route tree because I think he can do it. And Malik Neighbors really came on this year. What we thought Keyshawn Butte was going to do. Malik Neighbors kind of turned into the number one there at LSU. And I mean, he's tough to bring down. He's kind of nasty after the catch, even he's probably 5'11", under 200 pounds, but yeah, I mean, he's tough. So, I like those guys. What about for you, Coach? Any of those guys or anyone else that you watch from the class too?
I think you with Flowers. I love that you brought up Flowers when you talked about Worthy. Every year in the draft process, we see players like Xavier Worthy, Zay Flowers, Hollywood Brown all rise within the last 2 months of the process and become, late second round, mid first round prospects. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody falls in love with Xavier Worthy next year around the time of the NFL draft. And what I like about him a little more than I like about Zay Flowers is Zay Flowers didn't know how to. Everything Zay Flowers does was sudden, abrupt, with burst and juice. He didn't know how, he's not playing chess. Or what I mean by that is not, going with the slow step, a stutter step, like everything he's doing, I'm going to outrun you, I'm going to out hustle you. Xavier Worthy seems to have a little more of that nuance to his game. High level of concentration too. Some of the catches I've seen him make are very impressive. Troy Franklin's exciting. Like I said, kind of similar to, lazy comparison for him would be a Devontae Smith, 6'2", 170 pounds. That's the measurements I got. That's very lean. But for a thin, wiry wide receiver, he's not as smooth as Devontae Smith, but he's sudden, abrupt, good route runner. Malik Neighbors was number 6 in the nation in missed tackles forced. I don't have my comparisons for quarterbacks. Every now and then I make a comparison for running back, but I'm always seeing comparisons for wide receivers. And what I see with Neighbors is CeeDee Lambish. Inside receiver, outside receiver, crossing routes, yard after the catch, separator. He's going to go up and get it. He's going to plug it. I like Malik Neighbors, but what about you? You didn't mention, can we talk about Rome Odunze from Washington? Yeah, 6'3", 200 pounds. I think everything that everyone hoped Quentin Johnson was, I think Rome Odunze, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I need to ask Wikipedia or Jeeves. I think he is better at all of those things than Quentin Johnson. He plays big, he plays fast, but he plays physical as well. He does it all. He's another true X, and I have Odunze as my number 2.
Look, I think Rome Odunze is exceptional. Like you said, he has the size and he's not afraid to use it off the line. I think when he was against corners that couldn't press him well, I mean, he dominated against the Arizonas and Washington States of the world. I thought, he played really well, got downfield, made some of these big catches. I do think there were games where Rome Odunze just couldn't get off the line, where I'm like, this big guy should be able to get off the line. He just can't do it, So it's some of those tales of wow, this is really good, this is really bad. Now, if we see that development, he can consistently do the things that he did really well. I mean, I think we could be talking even about a top 20 pick. So I think the upside's certainly there with him and his teammate, Jalen McMillan. I think both those guys, we talk about Phoenix, this Washington offense could really blow up.
What do you think about Singer? Can I bring up Singer too?
Go ahead.
Sorry. You like him, Shane?
Yeah, like he's my wide receiver 7. Dorian Singer is going from Arizona to USC to fill that Jordan Addison role. I think he's clearly going to be the number 1 guy there. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Addison just in terms of the route running, but he has a little bit more of that deeper speed, I think, to beat you. Just a good player. I think there's just a lot of potential in this class.
Yeah, I don't think he needs separation to catch the football. He just needs out of all the players I watched, I was the most impressed with his catching ability out of all of them. He's an elite catcher of the football, plucker, snatcher. I noticed even when he was running away from a defender and the ball was going to fall in his lap, he still didn't just let it come to him. Everything he was catching, he was grabbing it out of the air. So I was impressed. But I'm sorry for hijacking the show, Brian. It's all you.
No, that's fine. I was gonna actually go to you. I love Adunze last year. I wish he was high on my board, and then he went back to school. I'm a big fan of McMillan as well. I want to quickly talk about who I think we're going to talk about, like we did Dalton Kincaid in this year's class, but listed as a wide receiver, and that's Johnny Wilson, Florida State.
Massive, huge.
Yeah. I mean, he's big. I don't think he plays that big. I think it's an issue to me, where I thought a lot of times Jordan Travis kind of made him a little bit better than he is. But I mean, you can't teach a guy that's close to 6'7", 235 with the leaping ability that he has. He's definitely a wild card. Like I kind of like Aronda Gadsden of Syracuse a little bit more, but I think both those guys are just unique kind of unicorns in this pass catching class.
The measurements I got for Wilson, 6'7", 235 pounds. Good luck being a safety, trying to hit this guy when he's up to a full head of steam. But Shane, I am scarred from like 3 or 4 years of liking big wide receivers that can't separate.
Yeah.
I fall in love with big, aggressive, physical wide receivers. And it's like my brain now, I see a guy like this and I'm like, no, will not work. And this X is for XFL because I see a guy like this going in, producing in a league like the XFL. Who's the wide receiver from Iowa State? Hakeem Butler. Crushing it. And now he's coming back to the NFL. But when I watched Wilson and I gave him a little bit more time, he was more nuanced than I expected. The subtleties at the top of his route, in one-on-one coverage with the DB right in front of him, his stutter steps to get the DB to open to the left so we can cut under him to the right. Like he doesn't just play like a big wide or even another big receiver to come out of Florida State. I think he's a smoother athlete than Kelvin Benjamin. I do. I think he's a better route runner than Kelvin Benjamin, but at 6'7", 235 pounds, I'm just nervous about how much he can separate consistently.
Right. And last receiver I want to talk about because I haven't talked about a South Carolina player yet. So let's talk about Juice Wells. The wide receiver for South Carolina had a big year last year. I'm expecting him to be put up another big year this year.
Look, I really liked him coming in. I think the transfer up, he was exceptional. I mean, he really didn't come on till the last couple games there, and those
neither did the rest of the offense, to be honest.
That's fair. But I think the Juice nickname is apt. I think he has a lot of that quick twitch ability to kind of make you miss and can take a lot of those screen passes, short passes for big yardage. I think he was a little more of a role player. I'm interested to see how South Carolina's offense goes this year with the new coordinator and if Wells can be a little more traditional in showing what he can do.
You and me both. All right, let's move on to tight ends now. And we're going to talk about – let's just quickly get this out of the way. Let's talk about a former Gamecock. Now, another Florida State player we're going to talk about here, Jaheim Bell. And I am sitting here begging Mike Norvell, use him like a damn tight end and don't have him taking carries.
I have a feeling you will not be taking carries at Florida State and actually playing like slot receiver, tight end there. I still think he's a great talent that South Carolina just botched completely. And I think he's my tight end 3. We could see Jaheim Bell be one of those kind of move tight ends that really works in the NFL in the right system.
I haven't watched any tight end other than Brock Bowers. So I'm going to be learning during this segment as well.
The sad part is, Shane, I think if Jaheim Bell had stayed and not transferred, he would have gotten used a lot better in the offensive system that Arkansas.
I think after 3 years,
I don't blame no. I don't
No.
blame him at all.
Shane,
you remember the podcast last year? I was advocating you transfer in mid-season,
right?
And but anyway, all right. So, Coach, you know about Brock Bowers. We know how great he is, so we don't have to elaborate on that. Where does he compare to recent tight ends entering the league? Looking at your Kyle Pitts,
right,
Kincaids, these guys, who is he? If he's better than Pitts as a prospect, and that's an if. I don't know the answer to that. How far back do we have to go to compare him as a tight end prospect?
So I don't think it's personally when I'm doing my rankings, I'm not even going to put him in a class with Kincaid and Pitts because I think they play a separate position. I'd put Bowers more in the conversation with a TJ Hawkinson and a Noah Fant, but I think he's man, saying a tier above TJ Hawkinson's tough because coming out of Iowa, I don't want to have recency bias, and we're really seeing him come on in the NFL. And if you guaranteed me Brock Bowers would come into the NFL and do what TJ Hawkinson was able to do last year in Minnesota, I'd sign up for that. But I think he's a top 12 selection. And I think Pitts, he went so high, not because he was a tight end, because he was a weapon. And Atlanta, felt like a guy like that you could sell to your fan base. Super exciting, big vertical threat, catcher of the football. But Bowers, I think you can sell him to your GM. You could sell him to your head coach. You could sell him to your offensive coordinator. You can sell him to the offensive line coach, the quarterback. Like the whole team's going to be on board. Not saying they weren't with the Kyle Pitts, but Brock Bowers is a football player. So I'm high on him. I like him coming out of Georgia.
Like I tweeted early in the season, I got flack for it. I'm gonna tweet it I'm gonna retweet that 5 more times. I think he's gonna be what we wanted Kyle Pitts to be, like this offensive weapon that can just come in and dominate offenses. And like you said, Coach, because of the versatility that he brings, he's taking reverses to the house. He's taking these jet sweeps to the house at 225 pounds, and he always gets open. Like he knows how to manipulate his zone, the hands, the coordination, and the athleticism. I mean, I think he's worthy of a top 5 pick. I think we're going back to like Eric Ebron as one of those kind of all around weapons. Now Ebron didn't quite work out. I think he's kind of ahead of his time of how to utilize this type of offensive weapon.
Sounds about right to me. Couple of tight ends I don't know anything about, Shane, so enlighten me on Texas tight end Jatavion Sanders and Ole Miss tight end Michael Trigg.
I think JT Sanders has a chance to be a first-round pick. He's a guy that came into college as an athlete, started at defensive end, and they transferred him to tight end. And I always like those type of players because he has that explosive ability off the line, that first step. And I mean, they were manufacturing touches for him with Xavier Worthy, with a lot of weapons on that offense, with Bijan Robinson. They're like, we got to get the ball in this guy's hands. And I think that says to his athleticism and toughness, doesn't go down easily. I think we see even more JT Sanders this year. 5 touchdowns, good red zone threat. I think he has a chance to be a fringe first round pick with the athletic ability, and as a weapon, you got to have that nowadays. I think Michael Trigg was not great this year. Like I think after the top 3, it's a lot of question marks at tight end. I think guys will emerge. But Trigg is a player I liked kind of 2 years ago, and then we saw last year it was just run the ball with Quinshon Judkins and Zach Evans and don't throw so much. But Trigg has flashed the ability at USC to be a real weapon, transferred to Mississippi with Jackson Dart, and just didn't work out. So I still have some high hopes for him, but I'm definitely not putting Trigg even as a top 100 pick at this point. I think it's a steep drop off.
So what I'm hearing is this tight end class will not be as good as last year's.
Man, we just finished a rookie draft yesterday, and there are more tight ends that went in that dynasty rookie draft than I think I've ever seen in any dynasty rookie mock or actual draft. It was incredible.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not this group. Like you said, I mean, I think there are so many weapons, so many guys this year, but there's a lot of potential out there.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, no one expected. We were talking Dalton Kincaid this time last year, so I think there's a lot of guys with athleticism, with pass catching ability.
There's no Luke Schoonmaker.
Got to put it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
There'll probably be a few Luke Schoonmakers if we're gonna.
No, it's Schepps' guy. He got the Staubach jersey behind him.
That's it, man.
All right. So I was told beforehand that offensive line probably not going to be your go-to spot there, Coach.
No, not yet. Maybe somewhere down the line I'll get into some high offensive line analysis.
Well, we'll talk about some offensive tackles quickly. Olu Fashanu is going to be my number one offensive tackle and a top 5 player on my board. I think he would have been the number one offensive tackle in this last draft class. I think his footwork, I think his technique, I think his power and his length. I love everything about what he brings here, size, and he'll be my number one offensive tackle. Shane, you've got him number 2.
I got him. He's the number 4 overall, though. So
there you go.
He's high. He's top. I think the 2 offensive tackles at the top, Fashanu and then Joe Alt from Notre Dame. I think both those guys are just exceptional talents. Alt probably more of a zone blocker, big, long, very tall, and Fashanu kind of has the size, gap scheme, nastiness. So I think there's a flavor for what you want. This is going to be a really good offensive tackle class coming in. So that's one of the strengths of this group.
Man, I talked about Ohio State wide receivers and Brian Hartline. Let's talk about Penn State and recruiting just absolute freaks. The Penn State every year sends out 2 or 3 guys to the NFL that are just physical specimen, and that's, I mean, I remember last year, I'm not, a great scout of offensive talent on the line, but doing early mock drafts, like as of October, expecting this guy to go to the NFL. I think he was a top 15 selection in last year's class. So, I'm right there with it. He was a 3rd team All-American as a sophomore, right? So, the upside's there.
Couple other guys that I want to get to really quick. BYU's Kingsley Salmatea is a transfer, right? So let's talk about him quickly, Shane. Add some bulk, it looks like.
Yeah, I think he probably has at this point. But he was a player who was a big time recruit. Is coming into Oregon, didn't really get all that playing time. I think when he did play last season, he was exceptional. Like, you see the strength. From what I've heard, he's bulked up here to maybe 310, 320. So I think that's happened. That development's happened. But a nasty player who I think has the feet and athleticism. So I think after the top 2, it's kind of projection, right? Like, who's going to step up from this next group? I think he's my most likely to.
And for the first time on this show, we're going to talk about an Alabama player, which a little surprising that it's taken us this long here. J.C. Latham, 6'6", 35, picking up a lot of buzz early here in the 2024 cycle.
I mean, Latham, another high-end recruit who is absolutely dominant last year. I thought he was potentially is the best offensive lineman that Alabama had last season, and kind of where Bryce Young started to, trick over there because you knew he was going to be protected. Rock solid. I don't think he's as dominating. Maybe doesn't have the upside of the top 3 in my rankings, but I think Latham has that pedigree for sure.
He's another young guy too. He'll only be 21 coming out next year, and like just turning 21 for his rookie season. So that's promising as well.
We'll wrap it up with 2 interior guys. Cooper Beebe, Kansas State. He's an offensive tackle there. Why are you projecting him inside here, Shane?
You know why? It's the short arms. I don't think his arms are going to measure. It's going to be Skoronski-esque here, but I think it is similar to Peter Skoronski that we saw last year. Where like Cooper Bebe has the absolute technique and the leverage and the footwork, and it's just I think
same color uniforms.
Yeah, same color. It's purple. But the long arm guys just get them, and I think I think he could be a first round pick as a guard.
You loved Georgia center Cedric Von Prawn last year.
Great name.
I did. I was really hoping he'd come out. I think he's going to be, the rock of that offensive line. I think he was at the end of last season, especially in the national championship and in the playoff game against Ohio State. I mean, he was, moving guys. I think Von Prawn has a chance to be a fringe first round talent as well.
Is it Von Prawn or Van Pran?
I think it's Von Prawn.
Von Prawn.
Yeah, but look,
Von Prawn's much better than Van Pran.
It's hard watching when you watch the L22 and there's no sound. I'm like, I never know what the guys' names are until
Brom Bones. Von Braun, Brom Bones. I don't know.
We've got to get Scott back next year to do the.
I know he was good at that.
It was good. Coach, I didn't think we'd keep you on an hour here, but we did. But man, we appreciate you coming on, and let me apologize again for getting you.
I like it, man. I think from going forward as punishment for doing that, you have to stick with it now. You don't. That's it. When you see me, it's Dwight Schepps. I'm gonna wear it with pride.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tell everybody where they can find all of your stuff, your just immersive content that you guys put out.
Oh man, yeah. So go to toiletstotitles.com. You can check us out on Twitter at toiletstotitles. You can follow me on Twitter at Coach Schepps, our YouTube channel, Toilets to Titles. We did a mock draft challenge with the people over at Draft Countdown. It was a lot of fun. We got tons of content right now. We were deep dive into the NFL draft. Now we're doing, tons of our fantasy football stuff. Shane knows we do the Frankenstein Listener League. That's going to be like transitioning my time from NFL draft to, running Toilets to Titles, and then also trying to set up and expand the Frankenstein Listener League. Like if you're not familiar with it, anybody, go to the Toilets to Titles YouTube channel, search Frankenstein and find one of our episodes about it and check it out, and then reach out to me if you want in, because we got about 36 openings. We're expanding that thing. So yeah, we got tons of stuff going on, and I appreciate you guys bringing me on. It's a lot of fun. Like this is the big leagues, like coming on, talking with you guys, like Toilets to Titles. We have fun talking draft, and we're like kind of learning on the fly, but like I respect the hell out of both of you guys. I've done a lot of content with you guys. Brian, I got to meet you down at the Senior Bowl and talk to you about your process. And Shane, one day we're going to have to kidnap you like old school style. We're going to throw you in the back of a van and drive you down to Alabama. So yeah, you guys bringing me on here to talk draft prospects a year in advance is pretty damn cool.
Well, man, we appreciate you coming on and dropping some knowledge on us, especially on those skill guys, man. Because I'm not in the weeds yet. I'm hoping to get there between now and when we come back in August. But thanks for coming on, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
All right, so that was Dwight there coming on. I cannot believe I did that. I'm ashamed of myself.
It was good. He was loving it. So I'm telling all the Toilets to Titles guys.
I swear to God, dude, I don't know where I got that from.
I don't know, but I
don't know why I thought that. I don't know. It's
that's why we call him Coach. We don't need the first name.
There you go. All right, Shane. Let's get to some questions we've had. We missed a couple. I mentioned there in the Discord earlier. We missed a couple last week, and that's on me. So we'll get to those now. Sal Cusimano at Cusimano_Sal ask, who are your biggest draft surprises, the 2023 draft, on the defensive side of the ball, and maybe some of the fits that you like on those guys?
I was surprised that Jack Campbell went in the top 20, but I love that fit. I think he's going to be a 100 tackle guy, the linebacker from Iowa going to the Lions at 18. I thought that was great. I was a little bit surprised that we saw Nolan Smith fall all the way to 30 as well. Like I thought he could have been a top 10 pick once again, a surprise that I think was good, a good fit. So I definitely like those guys, linebacker, edge, in terms of first round picks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think those are that's a couple of good spots. Like I said, we all like made fun of like almost them drafting Jack Campbell at 18, but there may not be a better like front runner for defensive rookie of the year out of the first round than Jack Campbell.
Oof. Yeah, I got to bet on that.
I may do that. At Flows 420, Brian Zukowski asked, no, wait, that was not a question.
Uh-oh.
Okay, sorry. Sal asked another question. Who will be this year's 6th or 7th round running back that could surprise? Talking like Isaiah Pacheco.
Oh man, I think it's tough because a lot of the day 3 running backs I think are clearly behind, someone else. I think Zach Evans, the running back from Mississippi that went to the Rams. We've seen Cam Akers kind of slow down. I think that's a possibility. But I mentioned it on Coach's draft last week. I liked Eric Prince getting signed by the Chiefs. Pacheco just had surgery. Prince, best speed score in the class. I think he's a guy to watch out for.
He also is there going to be I got tired of talking about this on radio spots about there being a Brock Purdy in this year's class. You could have I think you could have put any quarterback on that 49ers team and they would have had some moderation of success. So
dang, you're just taking down Purdy like that.
I'm serious, but is there a Brock Purdy in this class?
No, I mean if there was one every year, then it'd be a lot easier to draft. I think Max Duggan, has a chance, right, as a 7th round pick because he's just kind of like Purdy, like athletic, tough. Stick his nose in and can make it work in the offense. If Justin Herbert would, God forbid, get hurt, I think Max Duggan could come in. The Chargers still would be pretty decent.
Yeah, I guess that's what you're kind of looking for there. If you're looking for a Brock Purdy, right, you're banking on like a quarterback getting hurt. And in that case, maybe it's that he was a 4th round pick, but not a guy I'm a fan of. But Stetson Bennett, Stafford missed a lot of time last year, right? So,
yeah, could be.
Let's see. We had a couple of questions today trying to motor scroll through here. Okay, here we go. At the third ask, is the 2024 class going to be a better crop than this underwhelming 2023 class? Lie to me if you really have to.
We talked about it a bit with Schepps, and I think Ken's talking about the skill positions for fantasy football. I think the potential is there, especially because the offensive line class is great. I think the edge and defensive line class could be really good. I do think corner wise 2023 was exceptional. Tight end wise it was pretty exceptional. So we'll see. We're still in like these COVID eligibility years until 2026 is when that finally ends. Yeah, I think it's still going to be a lot of jumbled kind of mess of a lot of guys going back.
At T2T Cully wanted us to. He's high on JJ McCarthy. We talked about that earlier. You are obviously not. So, but we did talk about that earlier. At AKA Muskie asked, what do we think of DJ Uyunglele? And did I get that right?
You did. Look at you.
How about that? So can he turn it around and become a legit prospect? Yeah, he went off the deep end last year. It was sad.
Yeah. I mean, the past 2 years after that Notre Dame game is so good as a true freshman. I think Oregon State's system works. He still has the size and athleticism. Do I think he's going to be a first round pick again? Probably not. But I think he could be a day 2 guy that you're like, I like the size, athleticism, arm. Let's take a shot. Oregon State actually has a really good quarterback room right now. So I don't think his job is safe either if he's not good, because I think their backup, Ben Gulbranson's pretty good too.
That's what I say. Is there even a guarantee he's going to be the starter? Because I saw Nagy tweeted out, quarterbacks on their board, and Gulbranson was also on there with old DJU there.
Yeah. So I mean, DJU, I think he'll start, but I think the leash is
the leash is short.
Long. Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. We had one that was it for the Twitter questions there. So we had one question earlier in the chat. Scott M asked, he said he hadn't even started the 2024 class. What's the current thoughts? Better or worse than 2023? Stronger or weaker? We went over the receivers, definitely looking like it's going to be stronger.
Yeah, I think receiver will be stronger. I think running back probably similar. I think quarterback has a chance to be deeper.
Tight end's going to be worse.
Tight end's going to be worse. I think O-line could be similar, and I think edge probably will be worse. D-line will probably be a little bit better, and then I think secondary safety is going to be a ton better. A corner I think is going to be a ton worse. So it balances out.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that next week. Next week for sure. We're going to talk about that with we're going to bring on Nino. So we're going back-to-back weeks with toilets to titles.
Boom.
Next week, yeah, we're going to bring Nino on. We're going to talk defense with him next week. I went on his show and talked a little bit about the defensive prospects that I had watched earlier, and he kind of schooled me a little bit on some of the guys that he likes. But that's something to look forward to next week. More 2024 talk next week, Shane. Like I said, final thoughts here on what an episode. I'm going to be honest, I did not think we would go an hour 15 tonight.
You get me and Schepps talking. I feel like that when the three of us, we start going.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So.
I think we could have went longer for sure.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of we didn't even talk about Riley Leonard. And I really wanted to.
I know. Well, that's the thing. I think this early, there's so much potential out there, right? And it's a lot we just want to get out, especially in case some of these guys hit. But no, I hope people will keep the site up, and we'll check out some of the 2024 content here coming up.
Yep. Coming up, we're finishing up our draft review series. That's coming up tomorrow. Miranda's going to have the NFC North. I'm sorry, Brad's will be AFC North tomorrow, and Miranda will have the NFC North on Friday. Then I'm going to give you 10 players that I'm looking forward to watching over the summer. Miranda's going to piss a lot of people off. I think Sunday she's going to drop her post-draft NFL predictions for next year. So she's getting out ahead of it, and I love it. And Shane, you got an excellent piece I'm looking forward to on Tuesday where you're going to look at the top 10 players at each position group historically, how you've had them graded, right?
Yeah, 2004 through now. I've been digging up my old notes, and I don't know if I can limit it to top 10. So you might get more content out of that.
Shane's going to drop 2,000 words on historical grades, and I love it. But and we mentioned earlier you're going to have a 2026 mock coming up on Monday as well.
Only one round.
I'm sure everybody will receive that gracefully.
Yes, we won't get any comments on Twitter. It'll be great.
No, absolutely not. But that's going to do it for tonight's episode of the Draft Countdown podcast. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, like the videos, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever we drop new content on the YouTube channel. If you listen to the audio version of this, be it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review and share that out as well. We want to get those get that into the ears of as many people as we can. You can follow me on Twitter as well at Deep Fried Draft. Follow Shane on Twitter at Shane P. Howell. Follow Draft Countdown on Twitter at Draft Countdown. And go to draftcountdown.com for the next week and a half, until we take a little break. But daily content up there related to the 2023 and 2024 and beyond NFL drafts. For Shane, I'm Brian. Good night, everybody.